Things have probably never looked worse for President Joe Biden. Let's go and put this up there on the screen. Hillary Clinton has now stepped up as, quote, a key player in Biden's reelection.
Clinton
hosted a $1 million fundraiser at her Georgetown home. That ought to do it, because money is what she was lacking, right? In the 2016 campaign. That's not necessarily a good sign. They say Clinton's reemergence is emblematic of the larger Democratic effort to fully deploy high-profile allies in Biden's reelection fight. While Obama has appeared in fundraising, some Democrats would actually like to see him even more visible on the campaign trail. We're very eager to get our surrogates engaged, one of the Biden campaign people said, pointing to the Clintons and the former first couple, Barack and Michelle Obama. So that obviously is going to do it. And just in a sign of why Hillary is getting involved is just how bad things are going for President Biden. Let's go and put this up there on the screen. He now has the lowest approval of any president ever in the history of presidential polling at this point in his presidency. That includes Jimmy Carter in the 1970s. So
most of these aren't even close either.
Most of these are not even close.
Trump is actually, I guess, maybe the closest one.
Well, the thing is with Trump is that he was always low, but he was just consistently low. And for him, that 41%, it never necessarily went above that, but enough people were willing to vote for him, even though they didn't like him, that it would end up saving him. Biden does not have nearly that same level of floor of people who would crawl over broken glass to make sure that he's voted for. And because he's not, even though he is polarizing against Republicans, he's not animating in the same way for his Democratic base. And so if they don't want to come out and to vote for him, then he's in very, very serious trouble. And it's not just on approval rating, which is not necessarily, as I just laid out with Trump, indicative. On the economy, things are absolutely brutal for Biden. Please put this up there. This is just polling from yesterday. The standard of living is worse than their parents' was. Age 18 to 29, 39% say yes. The majority say yes in the millennial demographic. Most difficult economic time for the U.S. Multiple people say it is. Ways that you tell how the economy is doing. Their own experiences, people that you know professionally. Is your income keeping up with inflation? Only 24% say yes, it is. The vast majority, 76%, say that it is not. So on almost every economic metric, Krystal, it is not working for the American people. And on a polling front, things remain absolutely brutal. And the Trump evidence of his strength is crystal clear. Put this up there too from the Wall Street Journal. They have now officially shown Trump with a commanding lead, 47% for the election. If it was held today, say they would vote for him. Only 43% say Joe Biden. And a huge part of that, Krystal, is specifically because of people who voted for Joe Biden and are going to stay home in 2024. And that's the critical block. It's not even that Trump has necessarily picked up a lot more votes. It's just that 95% of the people who voted for him last time around say that they will do so again. And only 60 or 70% of the people who say that they did in 2020 would vote for him again in 2024.
They also found, they did measure it with the third-party candidates in, and they found that when you include everybody, it widens the lead for Trump. But RFK Jr. in particular, he's the only one of the candidates that does, in their poll anyway, take more from Trump than he does from Biden. So in any case, take that for what it's worth, because obviously there's a lot of challenges and hurdles for all of those third-party candidates to be able to get on the ballot. So who knows who's going to be on the ballot where. But overall, the addition of third-party candidates to this mix is probably only more trouble for Joe Biden, which is, I guess, why they're desperately and foolishly pulling the Hillary Clinton lever, thinking that is going to somehow save them in any way. You know, the economic stuff is very interesting. There's a whole debate raging on econ and political Twitter about whether the economic woes that the American people are reporting are imagined. Are they in their head? Are they just persuaded by TikTok disinformation and negative media reports? Or are people really going through it? And one of the things that this poll asked people is like, hey, are you saying these things about the economy because of what you've heard is happening with other people? Or are you talking about your own personal financial situation? And overwhelmingly, guess what, guys? They said, it's about me and what I'm experiencing in my life. And we had that number up there before of how many people, overwhelmingly, they say, no, my wages are not keeping up with inflation. As we've discussed here as well, remember, The story of the Biden administration is a story not only of inflation, but also of all the COVID-era social safety net programs being stripped away. We have tracked here repeatedly the way that high interest rates have screwed the housing market and made housing more affordable than at almost any time in history. We've tracked here how people are increasingly maxing out their credit cards. So when you look at these consumer spending numbers and you're like, everybody seems all right, they're spending normal amounts of money, or they've even increased the amount of money that they're spending, guess what? They're racking up massive amounts of debt to do that. We've tracked also how, these new like installment payment companies that you can use online or even at the grocery store sometimes, how they have seen a massive increase in business where people are using installment plans even to pay for basic things like groceries. So if you know where to look, the signs are all over the place that things are going poorly. And you can't just look at the unemployment rate. You certainly can't just look at the stock market. You have to look at this combination of factors. And Saagar, one other thing that we had talked about before is there's also a huge age divide here. If you are older and you have savings, the higher interest rates may be good for you. If you already have a home and you have savings, the high interest rates might be good for you. If you're young and you're trying to buy a house, and you're looking at these mortgage rates and the housing prices that continue to go up have not gone down at all, you are going to feel like I have no hope of ever becoming a homeowner and having some sort of a stable life and having, being able to move past this phase of precarity that I feel like I'm always going to exist in. So it's no wonder why you also see a generational divide about how people feel the economy is doing.
No question at all, especially with those young voters. That's a big constituency for Biden whenever it comes to who he needs to rely on. And they actually did some math on this. For every 1 or 2%, that equates to about 10,000 votes. And that is the margin of victory for exactly what you see in Georgia and in Michigan previously, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and all these other must-win states that Biden has. The headwinds that Biden is currently facing, because I don't think people understand just how miraculous, honestly, by the margins that he won in the Electoral College. It looks like Georgia and Arizona just flipped. No, they were so razor thin for the margin of victory that even if he was just a few points lower in his approval than when he was elected, he would be facing trouble. To be double digits down by, 15, 20% in terms of his approval margin since he took office, that's a disaster. It's just one of those where we have not seen this since Jimmy Carter. And I think that he has given Carter a run for his money in terms of the global crisis situation, the same thing that happened under Carter, the belief that his handling of the economy is a disaster. And with Trump is almost Reagan-esque in this one respect where you can project whatever the hell you want. For a lot of people who are voting for Trump, it's just last ditch because he pisses off the left. Some are small business Republicans who would vote for a Republican anyway. Mm-hmm. And then some are, at this point, Trump is going to get the anti-Biden vote in the same way that many of the people who voted for Reagan did solely because of screw you to Jimmy Carter. So I think that Trump is in a very beneficial position, but also he is his own worst enemy. We can't lie about that.
Very true, yeah. And the more that he's in the news and in the headlines and as his trials unfold, listen, who knows? There's a new CNN poll out this morning of Georgia and Michigan. Georgia has Trump up by 5, 49-44. Michigan, where of course there is a large Arab American population, has Trump up by 10. 50-40. It has him up by 10. So there's just no spinning that Biden is dramatically behind in terms of his reelect. Now, if you dig into this Wall Street Journal poll, they try to pull out a few things of this could be a decent sign for Biden. The issues that he's ahead on are handling abortion, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in the next block. If that continues to be a major focus of American politics, maybe that rescues him. You also have voters who are undecided suggest they could be persuaded to back Biden nearly a year from now. So you have some people who are kind of on the fence who seem like maybe they're a little bit tilted towards Biden over Trump. But that's far from a sure thing. They also talk about how, when voters talk about personal qualities, they still view Biden in a more favorable light than Trump. So voters say the word corrupt applies more to Trump than to Biden. Biden is seen by more voters as honest. A felony conviction for Trump, who faces 91 charges and 4 criminal prosecutions, would shift the head-to-head ballot to give Biden a slight 1-point lead. That's kind of amazing to me. So even if this dude is found guilty, if he's convicted of one of these felony charges that only gives Biden a 1-point lead, which is obviously within the margin of error. And also, who knows how people are actually going to react to those things versus how they think they're going to react to those things. But that's their spin, is effectively like, if this ends up being more of a contest of values versus issues, then Biden potentially has a possibility of pulling things from behind. And then abortion is the thing that Democrats are really betting on. There was just a piece out about how they're going to stake a lot of Biden's reelection on the issue of abortion, not even promising to do anything affirmative to reclaim the rights that have been lost, but just to serve as a bulwark against further deterioration of women's rights.
Yeah, I mean, I think that abortion remains probably the single biggest flashing red light. And I think it is actually the only hope that Biden has left. And the reason, though, is it's potent, it is actually relevant, and it's especially the most relevant in all the states it needs to win, like Michigan, where you had a huge win for abortion on the ballot. Georgia, I mean, we haven't seen it tested yet, but it certainly is one where it could activate the suburban constituency who Biden needs to drag out. Arizona, the same thing. So really in the states where Biden most needs turnout to go up, he's got abortion there. The only question is how Trump is going to navigate it. But Trump hasn't been all that successful. He's trying to distance himself from it, at the same time take credit for it. So it's one of those where he could lose evangelical votes in the same process.
I don't think he can really effectively distance himself from it. Not only because, I mean, listen, you're the guy who put these people on the Supreme Court, number one. So you're just going to have a hard time making the argument that this isn't on you to begin with. And also just because of party affiliation, I think it'll be very hard for him to dodge. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.